Welcome to Season 3 of the Knack for Business podcast. Over 250 episodes strong, we're here to ignite your entrepreneurial spirit with fresh insights, networking gems, and creative strategies that elevate your game. Are you ready to discover what your Knack for Business truly is? Your hosts are Bernie Franzgrote from Kreativ Insight and Wayne Pratt from Motivate You Inc. Have you ever wondered what it takes to build a successful career as a professional voiceover artist and podcaster? Listen then to what Earl the Voice has to say about it.
Today's topic is The Voice's Journey to Creating Passionate Projects and Podcasts. Our guest today is Earl Thomas, the professional voiceover artist. He is a professional owner of Earl Thomas The Voice, specializing in promotional videos, web content, public address announcements with various sports, business messaging, and diverse voiceover projects. With over a portfolio of 51 promo videos, including 5 Vimeo features and 1 Kickstarter campaign, and 45 YouTube videos amassing over 278,745 views, Earl brings expertise and passion to every project. His voiceover journey began at Giant FM in Penticton, BC, where he discovered his love for sharing his voice. He honed his craft through Kathy Weslick's renowned animation and commercial voiceover workshop in 2004 and advanced his skills through personalized consultations. Earl's podcasting career took off at the Grand Connection networking event, where connections with Diana Lindstrom and Carl Richards led him to complete the 60 Days to Launch program. Now entering his 4th season of voiceover, and with 89 episodes, including 62% interview-based content, Earl shares his voiceover experiences and inspires audiences with engaging stories and industry insights. Earl, welcome. And what is your favorite quote or saying, sir?
You can have everything you want in life if you will help everyone else get what they want in life. And that comes from Zig Ziglar.
So what was your first experience doing public speaking? Was it on a mic, or was it just ta-da and you're thrust into the limelight?
I was on a mic. I was really young, 9 years old. And my mom had sent my brother and I to Victoria Gospel Chapel in Nanaimo, and they had a radio program. And I was reading the scripture for it, and we were recording that. But at the same time, there was a DJ doing the Saturday morning top 40 hits, Gene McCormick. And I swear that the Energizer Bunny could not keep up to him. He was having fun. Rock and roll in the late 50s. Wow. And that really stuck with me. I can still see it today. Yeah, at CHUB Radio in the Malaspina Hotel. Yeah.
You're doing the recording in a hotel?
Yeah, the radio station was in the hotel. Yeah.
That's great. At least you could have guests come in, they could crash, and then do a round robin.
Yeah.
Sir.
The script was helpful, and every now and again, I actually like the script. When did you decide to make it a career, Earl?
I think it was really gradual because there was many stages. Like when I was growing up in Nanaimo, and of course, I loved CKLG and CFUN. They were the rock and roll stations on the mainland. And there would be times that in my adult life, say I would phone in to make a doctor's appointment, and I'd make it. And then, by the way, were you on radio at one time? I said, no. And when I got off this call, I wonder why she asked me that. I didn't really realize, even when I don't know if I heard the recording when we did that with Bob Burns for the reading of the scripture. But then I went to Bible college, and they had a cantata, a musical thing. And Judith wanted me to voice. I don't know why. When it was done, I enjoyed it. All I had to do was read the script, and I got compliments on it. And every once in a while I get these kind of compliments. So it stuck in my brain. I said, I don't want to retire and not know if I can make it in radio. I'm saying it's gradual because it's a longer story, but I'll try to shorten it up and give you as concise as I can. So I started researching. I was taking a course for unemployed, and they were talking about doing informational interviews. And the only one I remember doing is when I was on holidays. I went over to Vancouver Island the Duncan radio station, CKAY, and I did an informational interview. The next step was, maybe I should volunteer. So I volunteered in the late 80s at the SFU radio stations. I started in the news, and I went and got my own program, the Duke of Earl Show. Eventually, I got it to Mondays from 1 to 3. I was on before the comedy show at night, and the guy that was coming after me or before me, sometimes there was a lag, and was I going to, the guy coming after me. Sometimes he was late, so I was switched, and I loved doing it, but then I got work. And when I was working, I took the night school course at BCIT, radio announcing and TV announcing, with Doreen Copeland from KISS FM and Dean from KISS FM. And he's now in Victoria, Dean Chan. And eventually I got to the point where I loved that course. It was just fun. It wasn't like I had to work. I just loved doing this. So then I applied, and it's really hard to get in the BCIT radio program, broadcast communications and radio. Now, the first thing you have to do to get in, you got to go before 3 or 4 instructors with another person applying. And then I had to take a computer course. I'd never taken a computer. I didn't know what an email was. Fortunately, I passed it. And then I got into the program. And at the 1 year thing, it called me in on my grades, and I thought, am I gone? No, there's just a few things to tweak here. But it was a good groundwork. I remember I would go in on a Saturday, and there's so much more technology now, but do editing with a reel-to-reel, and you had a razor blade, and you have to line it up, and oh man, that was tough. And I do editing all the time now, and I don't have to deal with that. Then I went over I sent out resumes and my tape and my cover letter to all the stations in BC. And then finally I got a call from James Robinson, and he hired me. And so I made my way up there, and it wasn't very much pay, but I was doing what I loved. And I gave it my all. I would be reading up during the day. I'd buy the country music magazine. I'd go in at 10 o'clock for my midnight shift to choose the music. Just talking about it. I just loved it. We had Eric calling in from Kelowna all the time with requests. And then one time, a letter came in for me, and it was an elderly lady, and she thanked me for her music. The music she loved. I actually went to visit her in the hospital, and I just loved doing it. It was country. It was the old country, but then it changed into the newer type country. And then we would get calls, and they asked, "What have you done to my country music?" Like Hank Williams way back when, and yeah, but
It's actually Western, Earl. That predates country. That's Western.
Yeah. Country Western, yeah. And then I made my move. It was a bit frustrating. We were doing auto tracking, and I never got any feedback on it. And people would go on holidays, and I never got any of those shifts. So I thought, I'm going to go on a little holiday to Vancouver and see if I can find a place, even though I'm not working here, I have savings. And I was able to. And I came back, and the manager said, "I've got these fill-in shifts for you. Can you do these?" I said, "Yeah, I can do that one and that one, but I'll talk to you about that one." And when I went in there, I said, "I'm going back to Vancouver." And they said, "Good luck in the big smoke." And I didn't know what they were talking about, the big smoke. I guess that's what they call Vancouver. Yeah. I got more. More?
When you were in BCIT and you're doing the training in there, and even just to get trained up to do a voice, what's required? I understand the tech, and I get the splicing piece, but what do they do for you as a person? What do they tweak inside you as a process so you become better at it? If you're doing weightlifting, right, it's more, and then building up to what do they help encourage you to improve on or refine?
We had this course, and it was about the voice, and we did all these exercises, and we did some practice as well. There was between a hard sell and a soft sell. It was quite intricate, but I did take a course once I came back from Vancouver. I got into intelligence in chat lines. I was customer service. And then I took this course by Kathy Wesselek. And it was a day course and had the option for voice consultations. And so she was getting me ready by getting me diversified so I wouldn't be just slotting into one type, like the narrative. There's so many different types. There's a hot sell, which I actually started to like because it's really exciting because you turn up your voice. Yes, and buy this now, because if you don't get it now, you'll be forever out. Just making up as I go. But yeah, and I've noticed today when I go to do something, it just comes naturally where to put the emphasis, unless in the script that the client puts in what they want at a specific point.
One thing that interests me is radio has changed tremendously. And we have a mutual colleague named Carl, who basically talks about the death of radio. How did you go from radio to voiceover?
Okay, there's all these networking events. I think it was called Grand Connection. And we went into breakout rooms. And the guest speaker was actually the Miss Nanaimo when I was living there, and I had never met her, but there was Diana Lidstone there. And she introduced me to Carl Richards. She thought it'd be a good fit because he was in Toastmasters. I was in Toastmasters. I was in radio. He was in radio. And I remember our first Zoom thing. We were talking about Toastmasters. We're talking about radio. We had a lot to say. Each of us, as Carl said, Earl, maybe it's a good idea if we talk about podcasting. What do you think? Oh, yeah, that's why I'm here. He's a great conversationalist. And I'm not an introvert. I'm more of an extrovert. I like talking, as you can well tell. Oh, and did I answer the question? Let me give you more, because there was an intro course, and I took it 2 times. It was free at that time. And then there was a 60 days to launch. And he was telling me, you've got the equipment, you've got the Mac, the microphone, and later I got the speakers. There's not much more. We'll give you training. And he taught me how to make the artwork. And we did that one-on-one because we had things we did in the course, but some things I didn't get right away. And Carl's still there for me because I had a problem the other day. Excuse me. And he was able to give me some heads up on it. Yeah, because problems still occur. It's not perfect once you take the course. There's a lot. I've learned a lot in 4 seasons. And because my clients, they teach me a lot by by doing it. You do it, you get better and you get better. I'm surprised I'm at my 4th season. I asked him a question this time. What about if you run out of content? And he said, Earl, you'll never run out of content. There's always something to talk about.
That is so true. When you were taking your original courses and doing the voice training, were they also teaching you then on the art of, if you're interviewing somebody, the next question, how to do the structuring of that to that query? Not so much as a challenge query, but as in, you're telling me something, now tell me a bit more. And you're teasing it out of them.
Ernie, I love your question because that's how I started to love interviewing. In the 2nd year at BCIT, we had the radio station CFML, and the students take over the radio station, and they do all the jobs. And there was one job called making contact, Friday, 11 to 11:30 and 11:30 to noon. So it's an hour with 2 guests. And I thought, oh my goodness, how am I going to do this? And like anything, I'm diligent. I worked hard on it and I enjoyed it. And by the time I was done, I had this thought, the course, I thought, wouldn't it be great if I could get my own interview show? So I halfway have it because I do topics, my voiceover journey, and then I do interviews. And the interviews have increased to 63% from 30% in the 1st year to the 4th year, 63. Yeah. It's just really a lot of detail, a lot of focus, and it's perfect for me because I'm very detail oriented. And I have my own process, my pre-interview, then I do the regular interview. And you might be surprised when I'm telling them about the pre-interview and then we're going to book later. I had a time where I went on, oh, isn't this the interview? You can explain something to somebody. And I actually explained it to a recent guest, what the pre-interview, so we get all set up and then we'll book it. And I got an email later. I'm confused. And then I went and explained it again. And email back. God,
I run into the show. I'm talking to somebody and going, "This is the podcast." No, not really. There's a little bit of prep around it, so we're not going in totally cold, and we have something to talk about that will work for giving the best of you out. Come out, yeah.
I have a question as an inside baseball, and usually I ask for the listeners, but this is for me. You are obviously a creative. It just shows, and you're good at it. But you also are a businessman. Tell me about the business side of running a voiceover and podcasting product, a company.
Well, thank you for the question, and thank you for the compliment. Yeah, the business side is the hardest part. When I do my pre-interviews, the interviewees see my passion. It's obvious. But I come to a certain point, I tell them how I create it. And then I come to the next part of what the service fee is. Actually, I've changed it a little bit. I let them know that I could do a clip and it comes with the service fee, but I can do 3 extra clips for $70. And then what I've done, because of responses before, I pause and I say, now are there any questions? And I pause with this one person. I pause and I just want to make sure, okay, yeah, he was good with it. And I went to my mastermind the next day. And as soon as I came out of my mastermind momentum, I had a long LinkedIn. He changed his mind. He said he didn't know what to say. And that's the business part. And that's why I'm in the mastermind, because it helps a lot having a business coach. I was disappointed. It's hard. But I realized later there was many more that I got to land. That I'll do a cross promotion such as this. And I go ahead. When I wake up and know I have a voiceover project to voice, or an interview to get ready for, or record the intro, I recorded a new intro, or record the intro of the person. Boy, I can hardly wait to get up in the morning. Yeah. But it's those tiny little things. And in 4 seasons, I've done really well as far as I'm paying, but I had one and it was a challenge, and I got some advice on it, and I just did friendly reminders, and it was fine. We got it. But the business part is the hardest part. And that's why I'm grateful for Marshall Stern. He heads up the Momentum Mastermind, and I've had many sessions with him, and he sometimes say, because we go around and introduce ourselves. And then he says, for the next person, gee, I hate to do that to you, having you go after the voice. Oh, I love what I do. And I say,
Now, when you structure your podcast, it's not like all of a sudden, no matter what platform you're listening to it, it's not just bang, Earl and FNL talking. There's a bit of design to that. And how did you evolve that design around it? We call them intros and extras. There might be mid-rolls, there might be promotions inside. How did you shape that for your podcast?
I think you're asking me how I created a quality podcast. Would that be fair?
I'd always assume it'd be quality. Much like a fingerprint, everybody might have their own unique style. How do you design and shape your podcast for the flow?
Yeah. This is what I do. Once I know they're going for it, I send them the intro bio template. Then when I get it back from them, I will add my own perceptions of that person, because sometimes people are shy about saying, some people aren't, but I want to add that perception. And then I'll record it. I'll put it in my recording system. I've already done research on them, and I'll probably do more research when I can find anything more. And then I come to drafting the questions. I have the script I put before, in introducing them and saying that voice power, we connect with people with our voice, and it's important. And then I do my first question, and I don't just jump in and do the first question. I really think about it because it's a basis for everything. And then I'll look at it, and I'll do it in pencil so I can make changes as I go along. Because one time I realized I had to do an arrow up to the top. But for the first time, my last interviewee, I decided I'm going to do it on text edit. And so I did that. And there it is. So at the end of the pre-interview, we book it. And then I get ready. Like, I make sure nobody's knocking on my door. I've got a sign there. I shut off the phone. I shut off my answering machine. I have a checklist. I go over that and get relaxed. When I was doing the Grandview Steelers PA announcing, the hardest part of that was players skate out, they line up. I'm waiting to start up, to turn it over to the singer for the national anthems. Then once we get rolling, so there's always a little bit of nervousness, and I don't mind that because it's a creative edge. Yeah. And then crafting it is, sometimes I'm hard on myself because sometimes I'll fumble over and I got to go in there and I got to correct it. Now, once we're end the interview, it converts and I get a file and I copy and paste it into and I start the editing. And I love the editing because I've had success with it. Because in the early times, there's a bump there. So I isolate it, delete it out, go back a bit. Perfect. But I'm not done. When I'm done, I'll do a proof edit. And if I have to, and I might still find some more things. But I don't take all of the ums and ahs. I leave some in because we don't want to sound like a robot. And then I'll send it off to them. And in that sent off from Carl's template, I'll say I'm sending the invoice. So I'll send the invoice. And the last one I did, actually, she didn't have to listen to it just because she said she trusted me, but I still had to. Yeah. So now it's all complete. And it's complete. So I've got it. I download it into Buzzsprout. And then I get the show notes all ready and everything. And sometimes they don't work. If there's something wrong, Buzzsprout has to help me. Amazingly, sometimes it's just straight in. And then I create a sound clip and playing it 1 week before. So then I post that. And then the next week I post it. It goes to LinkedIn, it goes to my Facebook, to Twitter, and to a business networking site. And then I watch the downloads come in. And it's really funny sometimes. One of the first, I don't know anybody in Arabia, but they're the first. It comes from all over. And then I just watch it roll. I just watch how the downloads come in. Yeah. I schedule off who's coming up and I keep it in track. I got a folder. There's one for season 4, 3, season 2, and 1. So keeping organized is really important. And I'm an organized person. So it's there it is again. It's a perfect fit.
Do you do outtakes? You ever do a segment where you have, whether it's the gaff on your side, the client side, or just together, or you have a segment where you're having a good rapport and it's good, clean rapport going back and forth and going, it's not part of the podcast, but that's funny.
No, I've never done that. I've never even thought to do that. Maybe if I run across something, it wouldn't be hard to do it, of course.
I think you'd have fun with that.
Yeah. I like outtakes on the movies when there's the outtakes at the end of the movie. Yeah.
One thing that interests me as a podcaster, even more than for my listeners, is you have a brand that you've worked on and you've curated, and yet you also do industry-specific podcasting products. How do you relate the industry product with your brand product and have integrity in both?
The way I know to answer that is when I was at Telligence, the adult conversation lines, in 2010 in January, and we were expecting this to happen at any time. They'd call a meeting, they're going to outsource. They outsourced to India, the sales and the customer service department. So it gave me the opportunity, and I found there was a self-employment program in New Westminster at Douglas College. And at that time, I don't think I had a business card. I don't think I even called myself The Voice. But we had to come up with a business card. We had to come up with a business license. So that's where I became Earl Thomas The Voice, creating vocal paradise for your exact needs. And that was on the back of the card. So I would say Earl Thomas is my brand. Earl Thomas The Voice, I should say, is my brand.
If a business is going to do a podcast,
Hmm.
how does it help them push their message out? Like when you craft the message on your platform as you, or do you craft the message as them? Because those are two different things. Right now, this is the Knack for Business podcast, right? And we interview people continuously, but we have never done it the other way around. This is not the voice being shared with everybody else. It is, but it isn't in that way.
Yeah. I had one experience, the accent coach, David Allen Stern, he was in Hollywood for 12 years. He had a lot of experience, and he taught accents. And then I got an email back from him. And he said, "Thanks, Earl. I got a client out of our interview." I said, "You're welcome." I like to hear about those things because it goes out to 460 cities, and they're always increasing. 59, now it's up to 60 countries and communities. And I recently contacted Buzzsprout to find out about who's listening. There are some analytics on there that I've got to go in, and I can ask them more questions about that, because somebody was asking that as a business because they wanted to know who's your listener. And all I could tell them is the countries and the cities. And I would tell them, and I'm not going to tell you something that's not true. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to find out, and there you go.
This is a very specific question, but I think you will get it. You have a brand and a product that you're obviously good at, and you have guests who are actually paying for the privilege, I understand, that are in a niche or a subject matter expert, to quote my good friend Carl. Do you find that the person wants to hear from the voice, regardless of who the subject matter expert is, and that you're the product and, oh, okay, that's interesting? Or is it the person that is attuned to the matter expertise that built a product all on their island with bookends around it?
So you're asking, are they listening more for the interviewee or the interviewee? The interviewee or me, the interview?
Yeah, I think your take on that. Yes, that's my question.
Okay, this is what I do. I'm promoting them. I had an interviewee that was a grief educator, and I knew I wanted her on because everyone goes through grief. And I would come across people who were in grief. Said, I'd offer that to them. If you want, I can send that to you. So the interviewee is the one. Now, at the end of all my podcast in the show notes, I don't voice this in the interviewees, but I have an offer for voiceover, 25% off. When I do my topics on voiceover, I voice that off. I got it?
That was excellent.
Thank you.
Audience engagement. How do you ensure? Is it length of the podcast? Is it sound bite, the quality of sound I get? But is it like undulations of the voice? Someone throws in some witticism. What keeps the fire going? I've opened up the sound on my earbuds, and I'm not letting go to the end. Is there a secret sauce that you work with?
Yes. When I'm interviewing them and I have my questions, there are always sometimes secondary questions. And when those pop up, I put them in the back of my brain. I don't write anything down. I keep so focused because and when they're answering their question, if they don't answer it fully, I'll just add a little bit more because I want them to answer the question and be engaged. And so there is a flow all the way through. Yeah. And I know there's some podcasters, I was interviewed by one, and She doesn't write her questions down. She just flies by the seat of her pants. But that's not my style, that's for sure. Yeah, you need flow, that's for sure. And that's what I'm looking for when I draft my questions. And that's why I take my time with my first question. And then I, of course, reading them over before but you got to have flow. If you don't have flow, there's got to be interest. And you'll see, if you looked at my 4 seasons, there's not 20 real estate people. There might be 2, but there's a variety. There's a total variety. And I've made adjustments because I would do the recording. I've had the intro and the extra voiced. And every time I would go in and I'd be editing, I'd think, oh, I've got to do a new one because it's not about voiceover. It's about them. So I eventually I deepened my voice, and I did an intro and an extra. And on my next podcast that comes out, you're going to have the new intro, new extra. Yeah.
How do you deepen your voice? Is it like permanently, or is it a vocal exercise?
No, I just do that. And Wayne, you've really got good glasses on. I think that's pretty cool. And your mustache, Wayne, is really something. The voiceover intro is very important. And I write it so that it takes everything in. And the extra as well. Because I went a long time with that same one. Yeah.
So you do both, but a crystal ball question. If both of them if one of them could explode, and you could do just voiceover and fill your days, or just profitable podcasts and fill your days, and you couldn't do both, where do you think you'd edge?
Oh boy, you win the tough question. Which I answer it this way. When I was at BCIT and I was doing the interviews we had a segment on Fridays, a whole hour. So we had two guests, and I really enjoyed doing it. And I guess I would lean that way if I had to just choose one, because I love interviewing's a lot of fun. I never came across someone who I'd ask a question and I'd give a one-word answer. I always had to be prepared. I was always prepared. But I think I would go with interviewing, because I remember this question came up. And what I love to do is interview people, pick their brain. Yeah, I think there was something when I was doing them at BCIT, I prepared as much as I could. And then I just went for it. And I didn't have anyone really give short one-word answers, but I was prepared. And of course, I think up answers as we go along, just to make clarity. I'm really not sure if I've answered your question. Tell me if I've answered your question.
The only question left is, how do we get a hold of you?
Oh, okay. There's many ways. Duke Earl at shaw.ca.
So, Earl, you provide your service then not just to the province of BC, but across Canada. You're also North American and global?
Yeah, I've been in the States. I've done one in the States. Let's see, did I do anybody in Europe? It goes global.
Excellent.
Yeah, it goes global. I have people listening. Like when I look at my stats, it goes all over the world.
Perfect.
It goes to different countries, because they show you in Buzzsprout who has downloaded you and who's listening.
Earl, I want to say thank you to Earl Thomas, my co-host Wayne Pratt, and you, the Knack for Business listeners. So if you want to understand more about the art of voiceovers, you need to get yourself on a podcast, reach out to Earl Thomas.
To reach the podcast hosts, email them at info@creativinsight.com or by the website creativinsight.com, spelled KREATIVNSIGHT.com. To reach Wayne at his email, wayne@motivateyou.ca, that is MOTIVE, the numeral 8, and the letter u.ca, or his website, motivateyou.ca. If you would like to be a guest on this podcast and share your knowledge, let us know. We would also appreciate your feedback on the content or format. Check the show notes for more details. For these podcasts, we like to acknowledge the support and thanks to the following people. Carl Richards from Podcast Solutions Made Simple, a renowned podcast expert. Fred Crouch, who is the Property Wizard podcaster, where Bernie is a co-host. Jovan Strika from At Hive, a co-working space that is more than just a space. Then Melanie Weber, Bernie's invaluable business partner. And Wayne Pratt from Motive 8U Inc., who serves as both a coach and co-host of these podcasts. Disclaimer, please note that the Knack for Business podcast episodes are meant solely for educational and general informational purposes. The information and opinions contained within are not intended to be professional advice on any subject matter. The thoughts, views, and opinions expressed by the participants are their own personal beliefs and do not represent the views of the podcast hosts or any affiliated organizations. It is important to note that this podcast is not a replacement for consulting with certified experts in your area who possess knowledge of your unique situation. The hosts of the podcast, along with any participants or affiliated groups, do not take responsibility for any actions taken or not taken based on the information presented in this episode. It is highly recommended that individuals seek guidance from their own personal advisors in fields such as accounting, law, or other pertinent areas prior to undertaking any actions or making decisions that may impact their financial, legal, or other aspects of life.